I think the key takeaway is sort of working together, right? And not overlap each other, reinvent the wheel, and I think standards are important to, essential rather, to achieve that. It's like, we are talking in English, for example. English is a standard which we can both relate to, and I think that's a very simplistic example. Let us hope that this kind of standard and this one global standard can be implemented across sectors, across teams.
Like you said it, standard is a common language.
Dear listeners, thank you so much for joining us today on World Standards Day. We all foresee a world which is fairer, better living, and is sustainable for our future generations. And I think standards drive such collaborations, which is very interesting. On this light, we basically have Dinesh Sharma. You're the director of SESEI and an expert in policy and standardization. So without further ado, let's start off. Let's understand how standardization can be approached, especially in the Europe-India business corridor. So we all understand the importance of standardization, right? It's an urgent requirement for interplay of devices, especially like you mentioned in the ICT sector and so on and so forth. However, how do these sort of connect to business requirements or individual business requirements, especially in light of Europe and India?
So let's understand the basic of standard. What is standard? Standard is a document which has either the guidelines or the specifications on which product, processes, and nowadays services also ride on top of it. Now, who develops these standards? Standards are developed by the right stakeholders, which covers academia, which covers industry, which covers consumer organizations, which covers entire range of stakeholders which come together, work together to develop a standard. Now, when a standard is developed, there could be two contexts of it. One is the quality standards, which means the performance-related standards, which normally stays voluntary in nature. Then there are another vertical or another side of these standards, which are concerning the health and safety, and these days security is also talked about. So, one is performance or a quality-based standard, which remains voluntary in nature, and then when it is health and safety, the national legislations would mandate them for their implementation because it is impacting the consumer at the end of it. Now, what happens is, as the standard is developed by the right stakeholder based on the consensus mechanism, the product, processes, and the services, if they are built on top of it, there are many benefits the business gain out of it. One, their research, the huge investment they put into research has a capability to get commercialized tomorrow. Because that commercialization can only happen when it is based on standard, and the standard which is developed taking care of their research. Now, once it is built on standard, which means if there are 4 or 5 companies who are building the same product on the same standard, they compete in the market. They bring economies of scale in the market, which means affordability is taken care of. The consumer trust is taken care of. Because if I'm buying a product which is built on a standard, I have a big trust. I also ensure the safety and the health is also taken care of. So effectively, businesses gain a lot from it because they have a wider market reach. If a product is built on one global standard, the market reach is unlimited. I can sell the same product in any part of the world. If it's not built on a standard, the market is very restricted. So their wider reach is there. Consumer trust is there. They increase sales, increase safety. A lot of factors goes from the business point of view. So effectively, business gain a lot in terms of market reach, in terms of increased sales, consumer gain out of it because they can build a trust around it, safety and security around it. So standard based, and secondly, for example, processes. Even the processes on which the product is built, even that complies to many standards. Right. So they have a standardized process of manufacturing it. When the product is built, it has a wider market reach, increased sales, and consumer is trusted if it is built on a standard. So immensely, the industry gain a lot when the product is built on global standards.
Understood. I think it's very important that businesses also realize and support global standards and not sort of look at it in a restrictive manner that many more people will come in, but actually thrive in today's globalized world with the increased competition and the market access which it brings into. The next question which I wanted to ask you is, you of course have a very rich experience working in the telecom sector with Sony Ericsson and so on. As one of the fastest evolving sectors, right? It's very disruptive, new technologies are emerging every day. What is required specific to this sector to bring in maximum synergies?
When you talk about telecom sector, you always see in terms of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, which is getting rolled out now. and 5G for which auction has taken place as far as spectrum is concerned, and the 5G will be rolled out very soon. So this is a technology which is again built under the platform called 3GPP. 3GPP is a third generation partnership project which was launched by the different standards development organizations from around the world. For example, from Europe, it is ETSI. The good part is, in last few years, since the inception of TSDSI, which is the Telecom Standard Development Society of India, is also an organizational partner to this. So all the manufacturers, all the standard development organizations and their members come together and develop these specifications together for these future technologies, which means the ecosystem is working as far as even India is concerned, and it's working around the globe. Now, these specifications, once developed, they are also endorsed by the IQ, which is again a global organization which makes endorsement to these specifications because this is getting rolled out. So, for example, this 5G rollout which will happen in India will happen based on these specifications developed by 3GPP. When you participate in 3GPP, you can take a domestic or national requirement and get it part of your specification. So this ecosystem is working pretty well. But again, if you see, the technology is evolving so fast. Now this is a communication network. Now on this communication network, when we talk about disruptive technology, for example, or the emerging technologies in a sense, we talk about blockchain, we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about cloud, we talk about machine-to-machine IoT. These are few evolving or emerging technologies, which is already there in a nutshell. Now they will ride on this core communication network in case of telecom, but then they are emerging technologies. Many solutions, for example, smart cities. For example, everything connected. It's a word of digitization. We talk about digitization everywhere. We saw it in the case of COVID. The life was not disrupted. Everything was virtual. Everything was connected. So everything is riding on this core telecom ICT infrastructure. So ecosystem is working well. It's going well. And now we have to start continuing this work to the next generation, which will be beyond 5G or the sixth generation, which means even the research work has to be integrated into it. Because at the end of it, these people bring their research work and get it standardized. So India should continue their efforts to get their research, domestic research, into the standardization by using a platform like TSDSI. Same thing happens in the EU. The research work using the platform itself goes back to 3GPP. So let's continue this cooperations as a way forward so that we continue our journey for the future technologies and adopt those technologies, implement those technologies in a faster manner.
Understood. I think it's very interesting to hear that there is already something which is working very well in 3GPP and a lot can further be built on it as a flexible platform. Now coming to the next part is, of course, the sector has shifted. Everyone sort of focuses a lot on sustainability. So what have you seen over the last 5 years which has really changed or evolved during this period?
If you go back and look back, you always had a linear economy. Number one. So this linear economic concept survived its life. Now we talk about circular economy. Why we talk about circular economy? There are various reasons. I mean, every country, every member country has a commitment towards Paris Convention. Every country has a commitment towards carbon emission, decarbonization. So if you see worldwide, we already talked about digitization, now we're talking about circular economy.
Sure.
Now when we talk about circular economy, not very vertical. Circular economy is a very horizontal topic. You put any sector and then you will see that there's a vertical element to it. E-waste, for example, is one vertical element. Plastic and packaging is another element of it. Resource efficiency is another element of it. Material efficiency is another element of it. So there are various vertical, eco-design, eco-labeling is another vertical element of it. So what I saw in last 5 years, that when, like twin transition, in Europe we call it twin transition, and in the twin transitions, on one side when it is digitization, on the other side is green transition. Okay, digitization and green. Now, green, which you are talking about sustainability, it is directly linked to the sustainability. Okay, so everything has to be sustainable, whether from the material perspective, whether from the packaging perspective, because resources are limited. So a lot has happened. In India, for example, Niti Aayog has come out with various papers in the recent past. Even Ministry of Electronics and IT has come out with a paper. Ministry of Environment has come out with a paper around the circular economy aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So this is happening. This is going good. In India, Europe, or worldwide, we are talking about sustainability not only from a policy perspective, but even from a standardization perspective. Okay. And a lot of work is happening around it. Of course, it starts with the legislation, but today's legislation gets translated into standards. And if needed, those standards are mandated also, not only from the warranty.
Okay, thank you. That's great to hear, and thank you so much for joining us. And I wish the Standards Way brings you a lot more projects and a lot more initiatives.
Thank you very much.